Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. We are here live today with the amazing Ms. Alix Aharon. She is coming to us from the UK today, and she is not only one of the founding members of the parent organization Partners for Ethical Care that is helping educate parents on how to communicate with their kids about the gender ideology that is taking over the globe. She is also the founder, creator, and producer of the ongoing GenderMapper Project. You can see in real time the just explosion of gender clinics, including child gender clinics across North America, South America, on every continent really, except for Antarctica. These are exploding everywhere. Her and her team are communicating with these clinics, finding out which of them actually do work on children. More and more do, of course. As well, on her website, you can find her articles and research on the porn industry, on big tech, big pharma, and their reach into the schools. So all kinds of research. Today, we are going to be talking about one of Alix's areas of expertise, pornography. We're going to be getting into some potentially graphic things today. So just that is a little bit of forewarning. But we're really going to explore for you today why this is important, why this issue is important for women, why this is an important issue for us to know about for our kids, and how very related the propaganda of this industry is in terms of the propaganda of the gender industry. So thank you, Alix, for being with me today.
Yeah, and I also would love to say to everybody, if I can just hijack this for 2 quick seconds, just to kind of tell everybody something. So there has been a couple of rumors going around that the map is no longer is no longer up. But I just want to show everybody that the map is up, live and kicking. It's doing better than ever. So we have obviously the pediatric gender clinics, and you can drill down just here and take a look at all of them. Okay. You can also export this to Excel. If you want, you can filter and drill down and look for contains or whatever. It's actually far more elaborate than our one that was based on Google Maps. You can then drill down, take a look at the pediatric surgeons. Everything is there. Everything is being expanded all of the time. So I just wanted to tell everybody that the map is back and stronger and more independent than ever. We have broken free from the chains of Google, and we're really excited to be, totally and utterly independent. So thanks, thanks everybody for letting me share that just for a few seconds.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I should share one other piece of business at the top. I will mention it again at the end. Alix and I are going to both be speaking on a panel this coming April the 20th in Austin, Texas. Alix, of course, as a member of Partners for Ethical Care, is involved in organizing this event. This is a Partners for Ethical Care event. It is called Bigger Than Texas, Exposing the Gender Industry. We know it is a global industry, so we will be getting into that. So anyone who would like to come, I'll put up the link just in a bit, but we still have seats. And so we welcome you to join us in Austin, Texas, and meet us and greet us and join us in that panel.
And I know, just to kind of say something else, Amy, there was also a lot of interest. We had a really great panel. I think it was around a month and a half ago, and we had Barry on the panel, and a lot of women expressed some interest in him and hearing more from him. So if you want to hear more from him, then you can do so at our Texas conference, because he will be doing a panel there. And I believe also he will be giving everybody a glimpse as well into his ongoing course. I've been doing the Winning Mindset, which is Barry's program, for I think around 1.5 years now, or if I'm not mistaken, just over a year. And we've seen some really fantastic successes from his, I don't know what you call it, amazing way of thinking and amazing way of digesting this, in particular for those who have children who are caught up in this gender cult. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So Jennifer's in the chat. Yeah, fantastic. Barry is amazing. Yes. Anyway, so just as well, I'd love to say to everybody, if you have children nearby, maybe watch this at another time. If you're at work, minimize, because we're going to really get into it today. This is not safe for work. And just, I even hate saying this, but like trigger warning, content warning, we're going to be getting into it today.
All right. So yeah, so maybe we can just jump in, Alex. I know you've been researching porn for a number of years now. Thank you for doing this work because I know you go down a lot of rabbit holes that the rest of us would rather not go down. But your expose on this, I think, has been really transformational and helping parents, kids, really everyone see how this industry is really targeting kids and is really exacerbating and indoctrinating kids into a mindset that is the exact same mindset of gender ideology. And I know that you want to get into some graphic stuff today, and I'll sort of give you the floor and let you get into it, and then we'll unpack it.
Yeah, great. So, so I've been talking. The interesting thing about porn is that you don't really ever stop researching it because porn is such an ever evolving space where you know, things change overnight. I mean, when I first started talking about OnlyFans, they had like a couple of hundreds, maybe not a couple of hundred, couple of thousand of subscribers. And I watched that grow from, you know, a couple of hundred of subscribers to being 1 million subscribers. And I think I was like screaming from the rooftop about OnlyFans pretty much from the very beginning,
Yep.
and saying, okay, listen, if you have a teenage daughter, and people really dismissed me at the time. They were like, oh, my teenage daughter will never get on OnlyFans. I'm like, no, this will become incredibly, you know, like virulent through the culture. And now there's a million young women, mainly young women, who are using OnlyFans. And I really would like to say to everyone who's a parent here, if you have a teenage girl, take her iPhone, take her laptop, and make sure that you block that site because it is as dangerous, I'm telling you, as arsenic. It is a terrible website where, you know, the girls are groomed from the wider culture, be it YouTube stars or even kind of even Netflix shows. They're groomed into believing they're going to be these overnight millionaires from selling a couple of, you know, lewd pictures on OnlyFans. And let me tell you that the average girl makes around $176 from OnlyFans. And you know, often when they join, you know, they might join with the idea to sell a couple of pictures, and then 2 months later, they're doing 7 people gangbang acts, right? And I think that that kind of ties quite nicely into to talking really about the nuts and bolts of porn, and then starting to kind of make some real world comparisons about things that we're seeing just in the general media. So, so let me ask you something, Amy. Before you sort of started talking about this or thinking about this, what did you think of when you heard the word pornography?
Well, I mean, I I have not researched as well as you, but I have, you know, I do have a feminist background in analysis. So you know, I think I want to say I got introduced to Gail Dines and Robert Jensen maybe back in the early 2000s. You know, before that, I think I thought, like many people, that porn was, you know, more like Playboy magazines that are, you
Yeah,
know, that
me too. Yeah.
and yeah, I think going down this rabbit hole, it is really shocking to find out what it is. You know, I thought maybe it's, you know, some people having sex on camera.
Right.
But I know it's so much more than that.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that a lot of people, I would say, over the age of 35, 35, 36, so kind of, you know, my age group, a lot of people over the age of 35 truly don't understand the world of pornography because they didn't grow up with it, right? When you talk, if I was to talk about porn with someone of my parents' generation, they might think, you know, kind of cheesy movies from the 1970s, you know, lewd pictures, perhaps, you know, Pamela Anderson and her, you know, infamous, you know, sex tape, which was stolen from her. These are the kind of things that people are going to think about, right? And I think that it's really important for us to put those notions to one side and say, you know, yes, Penthouse was a problem and Playboy was a problem. It was sexist, it was degrading, but I almost think let's forget about that. Let's move past and let's talk about because yes, it was sexist and horrible, right? But you didn't. I don't think many people lost sleep over it. Over these, I always think back to there was a paper that was very popular when I was growing up that was called The Sun, and on page 3 every day it had a different kind of topless model. And yes, it was sexist, and yes, it was you know, objectifying and cheapening women. But I look back on it and I actually think, wow, I mean, what kind of sweet times, you know, to have this you know, picture of a nude woman in a magazine. It was because they don't really do that anymore. These kind of things are not done anymore.
Yeah, the like the fold out
Right.
centerfold kind of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And
it's almost
her
fake.
likes and dislikes, you know,
Yeah.
she likes puppies. Her favorite flower is a rose. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, you know, to imagine now the world of pornography, you have to really think that that what would happen 30 years ago, 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago. People would go typically into a video shop. They would rent a video or buy a magazine, and they would go home and consume the content in private, right? And this was kind of where the relationship started and began. It didn't really go anywhere, this relationship. Yes, of course, you had men who would fall in love with porn stars from videos and, you know, kind of stalk them and whatever. But with the advent of the internet, what we now have is intense personal um, relationships which are being forged between the consumer and the pornographer. So you have girls, for example, on OnlyFans and on Pornhub who are engaging in relationships essentially with the people that they are creating content for. Now, this creates all manner of problems because, well, first of all, instead of young men in particular going out into the world and forging real relationships with girlfriends and wives and boyfriends and whatever, they're getting into these kind of pathological, frustrating relationships which go nowhere with you know, someone on the other end of a computer screen. Now, what it also gives us is porn has no upper level. So typically, the average age that a young man, a boy, is exposed to pornography is 8 years old. So once you think about that kind of stage, somebody might be, you know, if you think about a 16-year-old, they might be looking for, you know, scenes of intercourse, right? But that upper level starts to get quite you know, that what I'm trying to say is that after a certain period of time, that will no longer satisfy somebody. Okay, your sexual desires and tastes start to become a lot more elaborate, complicated, and it goes down the route of being quite violent and degrading. And a website that I'd really love for us to kind of talk about today, um, and by the way, this website is in no way indicative of the worst thing that's out there, but it's kind of indicative of what is kind of an average experience that a young man is going to have, and also a young girl is going to have online. Amy, are you able to kind of show us a little bit of facial abuse?
Uh yeah, yes. You mean the Doja Cat that I was gonna pull up? Or do you
No,
mean or this video? Or the
the
okay, you need to
the
go to the
so
web.
you remember, do you remember on my Twitter I actually posted a scene from a particular website?
Yes, let me go there. Hold on. Here, you keep talking. I'm going to find it.
Yeah. So, I don't, and it's important really for everybody to understand is that I never talk about the stuff that's out there that's illegal or the stuff that's out there that's available on the dark web. I only ever talk about the stuff that's widely available, widely circulated, that's on incredibly popular websites. Now, the website that we're going to talk about is called Facial Abuse, or FA. They can also, a derivative of them is Latina abuse. Now, what happens is they bring the girl in to film a scene, and they engage. First of all, they do a pre kind of interview where they find out certain things about her. Does she have a boyfriend? Does she come from a history of abuse? Had she ever been the victim of domestic violence? And especially with the website Latina Abuse, they find out, has she ever been discriminated against because of her, background? And they managed to kind of, are you able to pull up that
Yep.
still? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what we're looking at here. And by the way, this is not something that's like from the dark web. Okay, this is a very popular site. It's not the craziest thing that's out there. Okay, great. So this website, what it aims to do is it aims to take girls and completely and utterly humiliate them. Now, these girls are, they call it facial abuse because the girl is gagged until she throws up, and then she is instructed to eat often via vomit. Sometimes she's urinated on, sometimes, I mean, it's all manner of degrading, horrific, awful things. And I just want to read out a little bit of the descriptions that they give. Are you able to pull up one of the descriptions of the video?
Okay, let me
Sorry, I
see.
don't want to actually share any of the actual pornography. Yeah, so let's.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Are you able just to kind of
Yeah.
sorry,
So
yes. So,
vaccinate. This one is this hoe fuck effed around and found out with a pussy full of coincidences waiting to happen. Vaccinated Vandal is our toxic avenger, spreading his science in defiance. Bootleg and the VV effed her face like NS effed East Palestine. She was yanking rainbows and drinking effluent from cocks. She got DP'd and ate ass and did a 2M straight from her trail pipe. She took 3 more loads to the face before being dunked on by the whore bowl. No one owns these LA whores like FA does.
mhm. Yeah, so FA is obviously referencing to the website facial abuse. Now, so basically what they intend to, I mean, that's a description. That is something that's supposed to sell you in on the video, right? So we're talking here about girls being taken and sister. This is not lovemaking, okay? This is not people having sex.
Yeah.
This is not, you know what I'm saying? There's no, yes, okay, you can argue there is an element of intercourse here, but this is about humiliation, degradation, and essentially destroying somebody. And the end kind of picture here is her covered in cum. It's supposed to be a humiliation. And whilst this is being filmed, you have to understand at the same time she's being screamed at by these people. She's being called names. She's been called terrible, terrible things, whilst a guy behind a camera screams at her, and a man, beats her, abuses her, throws vomit on her, pisses on every goddamn awful thing you can ever imagine. Now, people might say, yes, this is a niche thing, it's not getting out into the wider culture. Well, I would say no, because let's take a look at Lady Gaga and her and this kind of performance that she gave a couple of years ago, where this is a really
So this is a
religious
performance.
ceremony.
of
Yeah.
Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm.
And as we'll see in this video, this performer is vomiting. She's gagging herself, and she vomits this green goo on
Mm-hmm.
Lady Gaga.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we see. And I wanna as well, I think I can go, oh wait, where am I? Here, going to this, the Doja Cat.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also another thing. So we're seeing basically what is what Alix is describing for us in this porn site, where we're now seeing these behaviors bleeding into mainstream celebrity culture, and we are meant to celebrate it, look up to it. We're meant to think that this whole Lady Gaga video is is entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
so all of us,
Got
every
it.
one of us in the culture is
Mm-hmm.
being groomed into being a participant and a consumer of this, whether or not we go to the facial abuse site or not. um
Well, I would argue that no, okay, so where did this idea arrive from for her to vomit until she pukes onto somebody else? This didn't arrive from watching, you know, your your average, degrading porn, right? It didn't come from that. It didn't come also from somebody's, artistic vision where where you may have something very, very weird happening, but you kind of almost get it. This absolutely came from pornography. It cannot. I fail to understand how it could have come from somewhere else.
no.
Um, I mean, and by the way, this theme, and I think that also that most people, most male porn consumers, will also kind of concede the fact that this comes from pornography, because there's no real way to actually deny it. And I have to I have to ask, like, a lot of the times when we see these performances and we see actually, this what do you call it? This rendition of somebody coming with like bruised faces and bruised arms and
Mhm,
bruises. And hello, Billie Eilish, right? One of the
mhm,
most obvious examples of bruised knees and kind of blood dripping down from places.
mhm, mm,
This comes from pornography. It
yeah,
doesn't come from anywhere else. And I'm not blaming Billie, I really am. But she also came out and said that she had consumed a lot of dangerous pornography, and it had shaped her way of thinking. Well, duh, I could have told you that 3 years ago when I saw that. I'm a bad boy, come and get me. This is a 17-year-old girl we're talking about here with blue
yeah,
black bloods and and also a lot of people. This is what really frustrates me. A lot of people think that the reason that we criticize porn is that we're kind of moral purists who learned about it in church. No, I learned about it from the site Facial Abuse.
yeah,
Okay. And I think that that's a really aggravating thing, is that people, um, well-meaning people sometimes will say, well, what kind of harm does this pornography does? Because they're thinking back to Playboy. That's what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about facial abuse or Latina abuse, right? And do you know what else totally aggravates me to the point of almost wanting just to cry? Are all of these people who are anti-racism activists who never talk about the porn industry, right? So, I mean, for example, I can I I can tell you, I don't know how many times in my life, maybe once or twice, somebody I've ever overheard somebody in the street shout a racial slur, right?
mhm,
Very rarely happens. It's something that's not, at least for me, it's not normal for me to hear these kinds of things. But in pornography, I hear it every third video. So if you're trying to tell me that if a man wakes up at 8 o'clock in the morning and is consuming Latina abuse, that doesn't affect his view of the world and his view and way of thinking. Um, and I find it so outrageous that people talk about, an offensive Halloween costume that somebody had, 10 years ago, as being racist, but they do not mention something that you consume that people consume every single day, which is filled with the most disgusting racist tropes that your mind can even think of, right? Like before I showed you that site, facial abuse, it's very difficult to actually articulate what we're talking about here. People are not, they don't quite even understand what the words that I'm saying.
So I wanted to pull this up as to what you're saying. I want to go back in a minute to talk about I saw a comment about Sam Smith, and that's absolutely part of it. But as to what Alix is pointing out right now, so this is a graphic from Pornhub's own year in review. So they publish every year a year in review, and it tells you the most searched for categories, the most up and coming categories. And as you can see, in the United States of America, ebony, which is Black women for the most part, or of course, Black men on white girls. Ebony is the most searched for category in the United States. And you see that these categories are very much like that. We see Japanese in Asia is most searched for, Indian is searched for in India, Russian transgender is searched for in Brazil. And in fact, transgender is the most up and coming. That was the highest growth category in 2022. It had the most rise in viewership. I think it's like second or third on the entire global search list right now. But this is it's very stereotypical. These are degrading tropes, these storylines in these, you can't even really call them films. This is not, as people have tried to argue for it in law, as if it's free speech, but these are actions that happen to real people. That facial abuse that Alix was talking about, when these girls are made to vomit, that is a real girl vomiting, being forced to vomit. That's happening.
Oh yeah, it's not a joke. And by the way, if you take a look at some of the this is the really crazy thing about facial abuse, is that the facial abuse and Latina abuse, they want girls they don't want girls who are 15 years. No girl is 15 years in the industry. They don't want girls that are 6 months in the industry. They want girls who are 1-2 weeks in the industry at most. So that because those are the girls who don't quite understand how things work. They don't quite understand that they're much softer. They're much less hardened to the industry, and will be much less likely to say no. That's a hard no. I'm not going to do that, right? And there was a particular, there was again, what they do in these particular websites is they interview the girl beforehand, and they find out if she has been, molested by a family member. And then during the scene, they bring that up, okay? Because her screaming and crying and vomiting and everything, that is the turn on of the site, as they want to bring in extremely unprofessional, trying to say they call them, what is the word that they call them? I think they call them teeny boppers, right? That's what it's called, teeny boppers. That is the actual term. They want to have the very, very young 18-year-old, 19-year-old girls into doing this. You see for yourself when we look at the thumbnails from that website, right? There's thousands of videos. No person is there is over the age of 25, right?
No.
And what was so insane? It's that, who was that very famous Duke student? Her name is escaping me at the moment. Anyway, so she was a student who made some money in pornography, and was then a student at Duke University, very respectable university. And she goes on to Piers Morgan and Good Morning America and everything, talking about how she basically funded her degree through pornography. And she's promoted as being this happy hooker, this positive sex worker. Piers Morgan says she was pound for pound the most famous college student in America. And by the way, like, she has a page on facial abuse, right? And it's very interesting that when she is being interviewed by Piers Morgan, as I've mentioned before, she's not talking about the facial abuse. She's not talking about, okay, yes, you made $100,000. Yes, you made $200,000. But can we talk about what you add? Because she's promoting the industry. She's saying this is a great way to make money to fund your degree. Okay, that's excellent for you. So let's talk a little bit about what you had to do in order to make that money. Let's talk
Yeah.
about, and another extremely interesting person that I've really been following recently has been Riley Reid. So there's been a kind of a growth of porn stars who have been leaving the industry in the last kind of, probably the last year, and exposing the industry for what it is. And Riley Reid is somebody who's not a real name, but she had a very long career in pornography, around 10 years. Which is almost unheard of in the industry. I mean, completely unheard of for a girl to have that much work for so long and be able to tolerate it, right? But when I see her being interviewed and talking about what she did, it's like a blank, it's like a kind of a blank face talking about, yes, in order to prepare for an anal scene, you have to eat X, Y, and Z. Or, yes, I did my first, interracial scene was this, and this, and this. And it's honestly like looking at someone who has been through like a war, perhaps, like,
Well, the term PTSD was coined for survivors of war, veterans, and prostitutes, which also includes porn stars.
of course,
It has I think porn is right up there with soldiers for highest rates of post traumatic stress
and suicides,
and suicide.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I don't want to, by the way, when I posted that thing on because I get into very heated debates with people about pornography, right? And when I post these things from scenes like facial abuse, I'm in no way trying to shame these women, right? I'm no way trying to do that. That is not my intention here. Okay, I'm horrified that they're on this site. I'm
yeah,
trying to raise the alarm and raise the awareness about what we're actually talking about, the nuts and bolts of things.
yeah.
Instead of having these philosophical questions, which are, they're interesting sometimes, like these philosophical questions about pornography. But I'm kind of beyond that now. I'm like, no, let's actually talk about what is being created and how it is affecting the culture. Now, a lot of people screamed and shouted in our faces when we were criticizing Sam Smith
Yeah.
and his latest video. I wasn't criticizing Sam Smith because he looks funny or because he does. He looks a bit ridiculous in the outfit. But this particular thing is comes directly from porn. It's called bukkake, and
Yeah.
it's when multiple men are, ejaculating on a woman. This doesn't come from, and the fact that he's there with it kind of the mouth open, whatever. Whether he's cognizant of it or not, I very much think he is. He's a powerful artist. He has control over his own narrative, right? This is something that comes from porn. It's not me
Yeah.
hating on Sam Smith because he's dressed like, he's not dressed in something, I would wear, but I don't really care about, the clothes are totally irrelevant here. It's the fact that we're seeing so much content coming from the wider media, coming from the VMAs, coming from the Grammys, coming from all of these very, very famous and powerful artists. And as somebody who is consuming on a regular basis snippets of pornography, I can easily say that comes directly from
Yeah.
the mind of somebody who's consumed a lot of porn.
Well, and I think, you are making the critique that this is coming from porn. That's why you're critiquing him. I mean, I'm making that critique. I know a lot of women are, but for example, this one that I pulled up, um this is just this account. It's not it's not an account that I'm followed. It's not followed by anyone I'm following. It's got over 5,000 followers, this account, and it says, Sam Smith looks like a massive piece of fatty pork being basted, ready to be roasted. So one of the other things that I really want to point to is this the porn is coming into mainstream media, and there is also within porn, and I think you can speak to this, there is a degradation fetish.
100%.
and and we're being groomed into how to be participants in that degradation. And I pulled up, there's some other shots here of him. There was a lot of them comparing him to pork, in this red outfit here. So there's just multiple pictures of this same thing in different ways. That's really degrading him, teaching him how getting all of us to basically join in in the degrading. And I think it's really, it's more than just making fun of a celebrity character. It's participating in a mindset of pornography.
So I just tagged you in something in Twitter that I'd love for you to pull up,
okay,
so that we can actually talk, because this is like, very important. All of this stuff is so, if you once you start to see this stuff, you actually can't unsee it. So you see it in everything. So I give the example of the for example, the facial abuse, right? Where you have this description of somebody of, Jenna is a fat whore who took 12 cocks in her face and, vomited until her eyes were green. That is not a description of a pornography video. That is an attempt to humiliate. Now, I just CC'd you in something which is on, so this is something, and you can actually click on Latina abuse, and let's have a look at some of these descriptions. Okay, let's have a look at some of these descriptions. This is they've gone protected. They've gone protected. I wonder it's because maybe someone has alerted them to the fact that we're live. But this, I mean, if only to understand what we're talking about here. This is on Twitter.
Let me hashtag it.
This is on Twitter. This is not found on the dark web. This isn't found on, I didn't have to get another, like a VPN and a secret password. This is on the mainstream. This is not like a couple of people with a camera who are producing it for a group of 4 or 5 people. This is and it's about, again, like I say, like it's about making women vomit. It's about shouting racial. By the way, the whole thing, Latina abuse. I mean, come on. The fact that this is even a thing is like beyond. Is it even porn anymore, or are we just talking about gore, or is that what porn is nowadays? It's just gore. Yeah. This is a popular website. This is they're on Twitter. They're aware of what they're doing. I have to ask, like, why do you think, have you ever seen anything, from example, BLM mentioning anything about pornography?
No.
The racism in pornography, because I've never seen it.
No, I saw Suzanne Vierling, Dr. Suzanne Vierling here in the chat earlier. I don't know if she's still here. I know she absolutely talks about the racism in pornography, but no, have I ever seen the NAACP or BLM or any other quote unquote civil rights organization call out the absolute racism in porn? No, I hear them, you hear, celebrities like Jada Pinkett Smith calling out racism in casting, the
By the
lack
way,
of.
I'm not trying to minimize that, by the way. You know what
No,
I'm
that's
saying?
important, but
Like,
I don't see them calling out pornography as, it's ultimately a propaganda schema
yeah.
for racism.
Mhm.
There is, I have said before, when I first started talking about porn, I said, look at it like you would look at a body of literature, like a text. And if you do a textual analysis, you will see that there is pretty much a single narrative, and that narrative is about degradation and humiliation, and it includes the vilest, worst parts of humanity. Those that are racist, those that are sexist, those that are abusive and degrading, and it seems that our there was over, I looked again, this was from Pornhub's site, there's over 5 trillion hours of porn consumed in 2022. So that was just in 1 year. So if we add up all of, add up the year before, I think it's going to be in the trillions as well. You add this up, you think of how many trillions of hours of this are being consumed globally. This is a propaganda system. This is tied to the
It's
high.
mind control. I'm telling
Yeah,
you, porn is mind control. Porn is
yeah,
absolutely mind control. And you know, it really, and I just want to talk for a second here about gays against groomers,
yeah.
because I've been, I mean, when they first came out, I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. This is cool. They're talking about, drag queen story hour and blah, 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 blah. But then when
Hmm.
you find out that 3, 4, increasingly even more of their members have OnlyFans and are producing pornography, even some of them producing it actually on Pornhub, I have to ask, like, how, how do you not see that you can't be against grooming and produce porn? Like, I'm sorry, you really just can't. And I'm not trying to be a political purist here,
No.
right? And people will argue, yes, but we create the porn for adults and blah, 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 blah. Well, that's great, but there's no such thing as porn that's created for adults. The internet has no, yes, you could argue. I mean, when I signed up for Ariella Scarcella's OnlyFans, I didn't even need to give my ID. I didn't need to give any proof that I'm over
Mm-mm.
18. I just signed up and that was it. There was no checks and balances to prove that I am. I could have been a 13-year-old. I could have been a 14-year-old. And so, from that perspective, I really have to ask, is this even a legitimate organization? And to say that you are against grooming, a group that's against grooming, like is literally in your name, and then to say that you're, not just promote, not just being passive about porn, but actually producing it. It's a little bit like saying, I'm a vegan besides chicken. You know what I mean?
I
It's like,
always I always say it's like asking the Marlboro Man to be the spokesperson for your anti-smoking campaign. The Marlboro Man, he's a lifetime smoker. He sells cigarettes. The Marlboro Man cannot be a spokesperson to kids to tell them not to smoke. Buck Angel profits. Buck Angel is a pimp. Buck Angel profits when girls transition. She sells other girls and puts them on her site. She produces them. She profits off of the fact that kids are going down this path. She sells sex toys specifically to young women who have surgically altered and medicalized their bodies. So she is profiting off of this. So how can you profit off of the fact that kids are taking these drugs, doing these surgeries, and say that you're somehow against it, when you actively profit by the fact that kids are going down this path?
yeah,
So it is astounding to me that this is who the quote unquote gag.
which is also something. But
Hmm.
I find it like, listen, it really, really, and I'm not, again, like, we have to understand, like, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about, yes, Ariella is not creating, the facial abuse. I'm not going to say she is, but I've logged in, I've seen what she's creating. But it's not even really a matter of what she is creating and whether or not it is incredibly lewd or whatever. I don't really care about the lewd stuff. That's fine. It's the fact that OnlyFans, who we've, through my research and many other people's research, we've proven that they are, OnlyFans is profiting from the abuse of children. It's well documented. The jury is absolutely back in on that, right?
Yeah.
So for then Ariella to take money from them as her income, what I'd have a lot more respect for her if she just set up her own page, and had a private Snapchat or a private Instagram, right? But to actually profit from the people, OnlyFans or Pornhub or whoever,
Well,
it's I
I
find
saw my
I'm just like, you're not, I can't take you seriously.
No, no. And, a friend of mine, Jennifer Thomas, she called this rape roulette. I think we have to look at all porn and including OnlyFans and look at it as a trafficking roulette and a rape roulette. You do not know when you are looking at this or consuming this, you don't know which girls are trafficked into it, which girls are there consensually, which girls are there without consent. And if you are consuming it, you are basically playing a rape roulette. You do not know which girls are the ones who quote unquote consented to it and which ones are literally slaves who are being bought and sold by pimps who are controlling them.
Yeah, and also, it's also the fact of influence, right? It's that, okay, if Ariel is a very prominent, popular person, and I think that in many ways she's a fantastic. I look up to her, in many ways. She's been on the internet a very long time, and I like her. But then in the back of my mind, she's part of Gays Against Groomers, and in the back of my mind, I'm seeing how many women got involved in OnlyFans as a result of looking up to her, as a result of being a massive fan. And they said, you know what, Ariel is doing great on OnlyFans. Maybe I'll join up. And maybe, and then the real facts is that the reason Ariella is popular on OnlyFans is because she has a media profile, is because she already had people who were following her on YouTube and on Twitter. But you're the average girl, the nobody, right? The nobody that joins up. The fact of the matter is that you're not going to make a lot of money, and this is a decision from which there is no going back. You really cannot scrub this off of the internet.
And as you said, much earlier in this conversation, but kids are being introduced to this younger and younger. Kids, as young as 8 are being introduced to it. It's on their phones, it's being passed around their schools, and they do not know the ramifications. And I know a young girl, this was someone who was in my life. She was 12 years old. She sent a naked picture to a boy, and it was passed around the entire school, and she has had to grapple with this. I mean, it brought her family, the entire family, to their knees grappling with this. She's 12. She doesn't have a fully formed prefrontal cortex. She did not think about the ramifications of
But also,
sending
where
this.
did she get that idea? You know
Yeah,
what
and
I'm
where
saying?
did the boy get the idea to ask? The boy asked her to do it and was pressuring her to do it, and she liked this boy and she did it, and next thing you know, she's the talk of the school at 12 in a junior high scenario,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, listen, I can't even imagine how, but every single day we're being introduced to a new story about a girl, a woman who joined OnlyFans, who was a high school teacher, and, everybody found out about it and she lost her job and all the rest of it. So, this is something which is, and also the whole Andrew Tate thing, which I thought was really fascinating. And I know that you also thought this as well, is just the level of like, the way that Andrew Tate and his operation victimized, of course, he's victimizing the women, and I'm not minimizing that, but the way he victimized men was astounding, right? He literally says in his own words that he was talking, that he, in the cam model business, he was the one that was talking to the guys because he was better at talking to them in a way that they would tip more, that they would get more involved. So imagine you are a man who is, involved, who's a fan of camming. You're jerking off to Andrew Tate talking to you. And he mentions also in great detail about how he would convince men to give 30, 40, $50,000 to these cam models in a bid for them to go and visit them, right? So he's a massive scam artist in addition to being a pimp. So I didn't, for me, I couldn't understand, why are the men's rights activists, right? The men who are, men going their own way and all the rest, why aren't they outraged at this?
Yeah.
Why aren't they the ones saying, I understand that they're not interested in the whole aspect of the trafficking of women, but why aren't they interested in saying, hang on a minute, why are you scamming guys, lonely men, who have nothing in their lives? Like, why are you scamming them and screwing them over in this massive way? And I have seen I've seen, for example, Lotus Eaters talk about it. They were pretty critical, but I really think that, like, I think men should be outraged about pornography, right?
Mm-hmm.
I truly do, because they, I mentioned this kind of statistic on a podcast with Megan Murphy, that 30% of men from the ages of 18 to 30 are not having sex, right? So, that's very sad. And of course, porn has, a massive influence in that.
Yeah. Well, and so there's this comment up, they need to teach women healthy sexual boundaries and how to say no. And I think, one of the points that's happening here is that when, the way that grooming functions, I think we should go into a little bit of, what is grooming. Grooming is preying on the vulnerable, creating situations of privacy and access, and desensitizing and normalizing inappropriate behavior. So these are things that, it used to be, you think, oh, it's the bad uncle doing it, or the inappropriate teacher maybe, who are actually choosing children, but these things are now happening online, and who is oops, sorry friends. I thought my thing was on do not disturb. So you can create, you can target vulnerable kids by targeting young kids. Young kids are necessarily vulnerable. They haven't learned appropriate boundaries yet. You can create privacy and access by putting this on your phone. So now I can watch it in my bedroom all alone, or in the bathroom, in the boys' bathroom, gathered around it at school. You've created privacy and access, and you are desensitizing kids by exposing them to inappropriate visuals and material. So all of these things constitute grooming, and these things are dissociative. These things dissociate kids from their own boundaries, from their own bodies, and you pair this. So you pair this porn alongside an ideology that tells kids that they don't have the authority to trust their own senses, that they have to call, who would be teacher Karen. Now they have to call teacher Karen they, so they're not allowed to know whether Karen is a woman or not. They're not allowed to trust the authority of their own bodies to tell what's in front of them. So they're dissociated from their bodies, from this ideology. It makes them further vulnerable to this grooming from porn. Now you're totally, how can you have healthy boundaries around your body? How can you have healthy bodily autonomy when you are being told from the time you are pre-kindergarten, you are a preschooler, that you can't tell who a man and a woman is, that your body might not be a boy or a girl body. You don't know your body. You can't, you're not allowed to know what your body knows,
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I've been, really thinking about the concept of the glitter mom for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And the glitter mom is on so many different levels, right? So for anybody who doesn't know, a glitter mom is somebody who says, I'm you're trans, you're a 13-year-old, you're trans, your mother doesn't accept you, well, I'll be your mother, right? So that's a glitter mom. But also, I always say a glitter mom is like, imagine you open an envelope of glitter and it gets everywhere and it gets stuck to you. That's like a glitter mom. You literally can never get them off. And who do I think is like kind of the glitter mom, like 1.0? It was, for me, it was Michael Jackson, because Michael Jackson, if you look at the way that he preyed on families, he didn't just prey on a kid, right? He took a kid from the age of 7 and he groomed the mother and the father for a very long time. Sometimes years, right? Predators have a lot of patience. And then what he would do is he would start to try to separate the mother from the child in physical ways and also in emotional ways. He would say, "Isn't your mother so terrible? Why does your mother shout like that? We're friends, we're together. I'm the one you can trust. They don't understand you, right? I understand you." And what would he give to these 13-year-old boys, 14-year-old boys? He would give them, candy and porn, right? He would show them porn. But that's every 13-year-old boy's dream, right? 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy's dream. And I also think about, how successful that grooming project was, because you had ordinary people sitting at home go, well, because this is literally Michael Jackson's own words. Well, he had a weird childhood, so therefore he likes to have an elongated kind of late childhoods in his 30s and 40s, and that's why he connects so well to children. That's not a normal thing. But he literally convinced, millions and millions of people that it was okay that he spent extended amounts of time with young boys. And he was so audacious, right? The same way that Jeffrey Marsh is very audacious, right?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Marsh is a very brash, bold, kind of predator groomer. He's saying literally, your parents don't accept you. Well, you just need to come to me. Mama Jeffrey is going to take care of you. Mama Jeffrey is going to love you, right? What kind of, and I think that I don't know what goes through the mind of somebody. I mean, Jeffrey Marsh is 100% talking to kids online, right?
Yeah.
Jeffrey Marsh is talking to kids online. And the same way that we found as well with Monroe Bergdorf as well was also, admittedly, he was talking to children online about gender identity and, confusions that kids had around their sex. Now, this is, I mean,
Yeah.
how is
It,
that
it,
just, do you think
it's
that's just the face
really,
of it? It's just to be, listen, and maybe the thing that you have to do, Amy, is that you have to be like Michael Jackson. You have to be super bold and super brash because that's your armor against the world, right?
well, and you can't, we can't condone these adults who turn into predators themselves. And I brought up this video because what you're saying is absolutely true. I saw this woman do this a few days ago. So she actually used the RAIN resources to critique and to observe the behavior of Marsh. I'm going to play this because it's really clear what a predator is. So he's doing all of the things that I said. These are the tactics that he is displaying. He is desensitizing, he is separating, he is secret keeping, he is creating scenarios of privacy and access to kids. So I'm going to just let this, it's just 2 minutes. So I think it's worth seeing.
We can't actually hear it. Sorry.
You
Could
can't?
you, yeah, can you share also with the audio?
Hold on. You can't hear that? That's
No.
weird. Hold on. Maybe no one can hear it. I don't know why. My sound is on. Well, it doesn't really matter because the point, it doesn't matter. Everyone can go watch this later, but the point is the point. He's using language like I can talk to you about how to go non-contact. He repeats this over and over again. Do you want to go non-contact from your parents? I will talk to you about going non-contact. If your parents don't understand you, I understand you. Come to my Patreon. We can have private conversations. If your family doesn't understand you, I'm your family. I love you. I'm your mom now. And this is absolutely terrifying because of course we know that the number one line of defense in keeping kids safe is parents, and really mothers. First of all, I do have to say, mothers are always, and always have been, always will be, the first line of defense in keeping kids safe.
And
And
it's
this
interesting as well. I also just wanted to mention something very quickly is that in the stories that I've gathered, and I know that there's moms in the chat that I know this has happened to, that they've actually had a glitter mom within their own family, right? So they've actually had somebody who has been advocating for the child, 13-year-old child, to transition, and this person has been a sister-in-law or a cousin or an aunt or a stepmom, and they've actually had a concerted effort campaign to separate the child from the mother. And
yeah.
and somebody mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis as well as a glitter mom. Perfect example, right? Because it once, and I feel very sorry for Jamie Lee Curtis because she's obviously having to grapple with this massive, transition in her own life where her son is, dressing up as a woman, and I can only imagine how difficult that must be for her because she can't really say anything or her career is completely over. You know what I mean? Like if she hated this in her heart and was crying every night into the pillow, could she even, the culture of Hollywood certainly wouldn't accept her for doing that. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, absolutely. And, we have to observe. I wanted to kind of go back to the Michael Jackson comment because we have to, I think it helps us to see through the narrative of this sort of wounded inner child. Now, this is something that Marsh plays on very well. He always will talk about his own childhood wounding, how his parents didn't trust him. But the thing is, just like Jackson, it is calculated. Just like that, the I forget his name, but the well-known story of the football coach who was abusing boys for years because he was a coach, he was a football coach, he was a big brother. He worked in a major position for the Big Brothers organization. So they do really specific things in order to gain that privacy and access and secrecy. They take sometimes months, sometimes years to select targets. So it is very calculated. These aren't like, it's not just some spontaneous thing. Like, I know Michael Jackson is famous for these slumber parties, but it's not just like some spontaneous party with a ton,
No,
a bunch of
no.
random kids who happen to be there. No, it's
This is
calculated.
selected. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, I
calculated.
always say, like, you look back at the families that even just the ones that have spoken out, you look at those families are fractured, right? He picked kids from families that were weak, right? Either the mother was really fame hungry or there was a divorce. It's really, there was certainly, I mean, you see it in every single one of his victims. There was a fractured family unit and he would wedge himself in because it was
Thank you.
easier to get through the chat. Sorry, what do you say?
No, I'm just saying that's the football coach name. I couldn't remember. So thank you, Olivia, for that. That's right.
And you know what else? I think that we have a lot more people in the stream now. So I kind of wanted to go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning with the facial abuse and the Latina abuse, right?
Yeah.
And and if it's okay, if we could just kind of go back to that and read a couple of these video descriptions, because I want to also for people to understand that these girls were also selected, right? You know, they pick girls who are fresh faced, have not been in the industry for very long because they're easier to manipulate, right? You don't take a girl who has been 10 years in the porn industry to do this particular website because she's going to say no, right? She's hardened. She's, you know, she's not going to go along with this. And this again goes into all of this, okay, is grooming, it's degradation, it's abuse, and it's not sex. If you can
Yeah.
just kind of read out,
Yeah, so this
yeah,
is a great one. So in terms of not a great one, this is a horrible one, but it really underlines what the mentality is here. So it says Tiffany Wells, in every way possible, should be a star in this business. If she decides to stick around after this scene, I don't think it will happen. She's 18. She has big, beautiful, natural tits, a gorgeous ass, and is conventionally hot. However, we destroyed her every ounce of being today. Her throat was shredded with hard cock. The verbal humiliation brought her to tears several times, and that smooth, hairless pussy was blown the fuck out. This is her first scene and most likely her last. I'm sorry, porn, but if you're going to give us something this pretty, we're going to destroy it. It's what we do, it's what we're good at, it's who we are.
yeah. So you know, like I find that, and by the way, like this is a common theme throughout porn. And if you know, this is again like these are the types of this is a description to sell you the video. This is a description to sell you on watching this video so that you can masturbate, right? This is their description of this. That they're saying that they destroy them, they shred them, they humiliate them, that they've deliberately taken a vulnerable girl, that they've wrecked her every ounce of being, right? And for then, you know, people like, I give the example of Gays Against Groomers, who I was having an argument about porn on Twitter, for them to then turn around and say, no, we're okay with adults creating this for adults. No, I'm sorry. Okay, you're not going out there into the field and looking at the pornography
Well,
like
and
we
how come, for example, somehow, when Leonardo DiCaprio dates a 19-year-old, everyone is all up in arms, like, oh, he's too old for her. He shouldn't, he should, it's wrong for a man to be with a girl of that age. But somehow, this young girl who is 18, it's absolutely fine for her because she's a so-called sex worker, and no one is calling it out and saying this should never have happened to this 18-year-old girl. This should never have been, and I want to,
these are real women. That's the other, you know, that people say like these are real people. This is not a somebody, you know, this is not a model doing a recreation of something that's been agreed on beforehand. This whole thing that we just described is a scene that happens where the girl is deliberately not knowing what's going to happen. That was her first scene in porn. Okay,
that's
so
insane.
she literally arrives to a porn set thinking, you know, maybe I'm gonna have to, you know, have do blowjobs and have sex, right? That's maybe what she's prepared herself mentally to do. And she gets there, 18 years old. Put yourself in her shoes, okay? Going for her very, very first scene, because they deliberately pick girls out for that. And this is what's happening to her, you know, like the dog bowl and the hitting and all of it.
Yeah.
It's a whole. And I just say to myself, like, when people go out there and they're protecting porn as free speech, like I had an argument with Sarah, the trans-identified male.
Higdon.
Yeah, had an argument with him about this. He's very, very pro porn, very pro so-called sex work. This is what you're defending, okay? You're not defending a couple of lewd pictures on Instagram. You're not defending, you know, an eyes wide shut type of, erotica scene. Okay, this is what you're defending.
Well,
And
he's a
you
fetishist. He brags about violating women and girls' boundaries. He actively uses women and girls' spaces when he knows I've told him, you've told him, many women have told him we do not consent. He
Mhm.
continues to use our spaces. This is a clear violator. But he's lifted up. He's lifted up by Gays Against Groomers. He's lifted up by Colin Wright and by Christina Buttons. This is a man who is given prominent platforms and lifted up by prominent people he's absolutely a fetishist. He's promoting this degradation of young girls in porn like this, and he is actively violating our spaces. But
Yeah.
I want to go into
Can I just say something really
yeah.
quickly? I know that we gave a very big content warning at the beginning of the video, and by the way, like I'm not talking about this and kind of showing the screenshot and describing the scene in order to like hurt anybody or offend anybody or whatever. I'm saying it because now I want you to go out into the space and talk to people like Colin Wright and talk to people like Christina Buttons and say like this is what you're defending so that you guys have the facts, right? Because now everybody who's been in this stream and in this chat has, even though it's very upsetting to see this, I feel that you'll go forward empowered and more educated to make better arguments with these people.
Yeah.
Because we absolutely have to say to Colin Wright and Christina Buttons that this is what you're defending.
Yeah.
Unless they're consumers, which I doubt.
Well, and the thing is, I think that it's important to note so many times when I see this argument framed, it gets framed as women should be allowed to sell their own bodies. Women should be allowed to choose. But that is not the question. Whenever and anyone this in any argument that has to do with this sort of thing, always point the question at the agent. Should men be able to profit from the degradation, humiliation, and abuse of women and girls? Should men be able to purchase women in order to fulfill their sick degradation fantasies on? Should men be able to purchase women and girls for their abuse? Should this be allowed? So I always turn it back on the agents. No, I don't think so. I don't think this should be allowed. And this is promoting into the culture again, like that, the dissociation and the shame. This kids who are, adults who watch this, I know, feel shame because men won't talk about it.
Of course. Amy, listen, think about just this insane fact. People watch this facial abuse, Latina abuse, whatever it is, right? And the gagging, the whatever. And then they go out and they teach an English lesson at the public high school, right? They go out there, they might be working in producers for Disney, right? They might be, they're working in media, working in education, working in law enforcement, right? There's no way you can say to me that somebody who consumes this content can therefore go out into society and not spread it out to others, right? So it goes into every single, because think about the powerful, intoxicating physical experience of having an orgasm to this fucking content. You know what I mean? Like the full body experience of the entire thing. And then you go out into the wider culture and you emanate that type of behavior. So it's affecting your wife, it's affecting your girlfriend, it's affecting your boyfriend, every single person around you. And they might not even be aware of it, right? Like, for example, the girl who was vomiting onto Lady Gaga. She might have got that idea from her boyfriend who is consuming this content. Okay, how many girls do we speak to who are saying to us that their boyfriends are choking them during sex, right?
Well, and I think that girl got the idea from, whoever was the director of that event. whoever directed that event said, this is what I want to see, this is what I want you to do. It was obviously very well orchestrated. Whatever she was vomiting up was neon green, so it was,
Yeah, it was
very much a staged, pre-planned event. She wasn't throwing up some eggs she had for breakfast. It was some sort of weird goo that was planned for.
and
um
it was
this,
sexual, right? That
so
whole kind
this,
of
I think it's the same men who are directing porn. They're now directing mainstream publicity,
yeah,
mainstream music venue shows, music videos.
course, of
It's
course.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what else is that this type of stuff, no matter how much we might want to put our heads in the sand to it, um, you cannot now. Okay, for example, you cannot now go out into the wider culture and see things like WAP, right? And see things like the Sam Smith performance, and see, Miley Cyrus's performances, and say that this is not heavily, heavily influenced by abuse porn. Why is there now an aesthetic to be beaten on camera? Why is it's almost like, do you remember in the 90s they had the kind of heroin chic that was
yeah,
influenced by Kate Moss and stuff like that? And it was like a very, kind of like a Holocaust type of look, or Holocaust type of aesthetic. Well, now why do we have this beaten up aesthetic? How many models and music performers do we now see who are with bruises? Right? I
well,
just
and
think
it
it's so
makes
common.
Well, and it makes light of it, right? Like Doja Cat wears this beaten up look purposefully on the runway. Meanwhile, Rihanna is actually beaten by her
Mhm.
boyfriend. Now, where's the difference here?
Mhm.
Rihanna is beaten. It makes mainstream news. It's publicity. It's a big show. And
Mhm.
now Doja Cat is at a media event dressed up as if she's beaten. So it
Mhm.
is blurring the lines, it is confusing boundaries. And here's a direction that I wanted to go in.
Yeah,
All of this is it is disrupting our natural pain pleasure signaling.
of
So
course.
the whole reason that we have sensations is to keep us safe. The whole reason you feel pain is so that when you touch that hot pan, you understand how to recoil so you don't get burned. But
Yeah,
all of this massive indoctrination and grooming system is dissociating us from a natural pain pleasure response, because normally, even still in a movie, you might see someone get hit, or they just fall down, they trip, and one should have a natural pain pleasure response to empathetically respond with a recoil, like, ooh, that looks like it hurt, like, ooh. We have a natural recoil, empathetic recoil response when we see someone in pain. That is a natural part of pain
yeah,
pleasure responses. But the way that this is working, or even you see someone gagging, right?
yeah.
If
Makes
you've
me
ever, it makes me gag. I've been around, I had two younger sisters. If one of them was gagging, I'm like, blah, blah,
yeah.
in response, because this is how an empathetic response system works when it is healthy. But when we put these images side by side in the media, oh, Rihanna is getting beaten by her boyfriend, it's news. Oh, Doja Cat is there with her beaten eyes. Oh, in porn, girls are showing up for their daddies, looking beaten. All of these things are blurring the lines and blurring us out of our natural pain pleasure responses. These are techniques of dissociation. And as
Mhm.
well, to orgasm while feeling shame, is again, that is one of the most well used dissociative tactics. They use shame and dissociation and sex in elite level reprogramming, in brainwashing
Yeah,
techniques.
Yeah.
This kind of thing is used. This is, this is hardcore level use of brain retraining and programming and dissociation. This is how you create a dissociated person in order to control them.
Yeah.
This is how you break someone down in order to control them. And this is now saturating the everyday, turn on your media, open your social media, watch a music video. This is being saturated. And I saw someone very earlier in the comments say, like, I don't consent to that. And this is the thing. It's
You
beyond
don't need
our
to.
level. It's beyond our level of consent. I can say I don't consent to that, but now, oh, I want to interact with Alix on Twitter, and it's coming in my feed, whether I like it or not. I can try and mute it as fast as possible, but that image has already entered my brain without my consent. Now, thank God I'm a grown adult and I have the capacity to discern that this is deeply troubling. But the kids who it's just coming across their feed without any forewarning, they don't have that level of discernment, especially, as I said, if they are already dissociated from being able to trust and recognize the responses of their own body. It's just the massive indoctrination that we're seeing is troubling. And this is why, ladies, I always will underscore this. This is why the work that is embodiment work, the work that is listening to your intuition and learning to trust the responses of your own body. This is why this is so foundational. We must collectively, I think, build up our integrity in these capacities, because these are the capacities that we must be meeting this system value to value. These are the values they are pushing at us: commodification, compartmentalization, objectification, dissociation. We must be meeting this at a value level and pushing back the opposite values. We must push the values that we wish to see.
Well, I just want to also mention something to everybody else, is that I am shadow banned on Twitter, right? On me for Twitter, I'm penalized for posting stills, right? And I think it's very interesting that other people who are creating the content, creating the porn, are not penalized, right? I can search for facial abuse, Latina abuse, and yes, their tweets are protected, right? But they are not banned. I can search for them in the search bar and get to them, right? So social media companies are, in my opinion, right, I've just from my own experience, they are penalizing people who speak out against this and using the same material, but they will promote and happily host people who are supportive of this type of content and creating it, right?
Even when I just went to search for your name, if I went to, before I saw your tag, I could not, your name didn't come up. Even when I put in your exact handle, that's a search ban. That's how a search ban works. I've been on a search ban before myself. And this, so, anyone who thinks, like, you would think like, oh, ultimately, like, in the grand scheme of things, we're tiny accounts, in the grand scheme of things. I don't have a million or multiple million followers. Like, in the grand scheme of things, we're tiny accounts. And yet, you see how much control they exert. Why are they even exerting control over these accounts with a few thousand followers?
And also, I know women, especially, and a lot of women in this chat, who are hungry for this type of knowledge, who are, who want to be informed about what actually is out there in pornography, or what is the particular hype, right? They want to know, and they want to be educated. And yes, they're disgusted, but they're excited to go out and spread, the message. But they're unable to do so. And if you're going to go onto Twitter And let's imagine that you don't have a whole bunch of turf friends, or you don't have a bunch of, gender critical or feminist analysis, right? You're just a regular person. You would think that every single person in the whole world is completely fine with all of this pornography, and that you are the weirdo for wanting to push back on it. And that's why accounts like Trafficking Hub and Layla Michaelwitz
Oh, I
is,
love her. Yeah.
I love her, right? Who's taking on Pornhub. Uh, that's, but they're penalized. So I really wish that for the women in the chat, that you'll go out there and start conversations with people that you know who aren't gender critical or who
Yeah.
don't know anything about this, and see how you can slowly start that conversation with them. Because I'm telling you, women are hungry for this knowledge. Women are very excited to because you know what, you look at something like, for example, the Doja Cat or the Lady Gaga, with the vomit on her, and you know instinctively that it's wrong. You know instinctively that it's very twisted and weird, but you often don't know why, right? You often just don't know the ability to actually verbalize why this type of stuff is not okay. And it's about disembodiment. And maybe they don't
Yeah.
even have the word disembodiment, right?
Yeah. And this is why, I do encourage women, to again, it's learning to trust your intuition. It is a practice. It is something
Yeah.
we live in such a culture of dissociation. You have to practice it. And I wanted to bring up this comment, Jamie. I'm really sorry. This is so disturbing. You had to work alone with a man who twists your guts, who is condescending and abusive. I'm so sorry about that. And I don't know your situation and what resources are available to you where you live. But one thing that you can do, first of all, trust yourself. So whatever you feel, if you are feeling a twisting in your guts from a particular person, trust that feeling. Do everything that you must to protect yourself. If you have to work in an environment where you're alone with him, keep your phone next to you, potentially even turned on, have the record turned on, and possibly even, I don't know what your work situation is, but you might want to work with a can of pepper spray on you. Women, do be safe out there. Not every man is an abuser, but if you meet a man who you think is dangerous to you, trust that instinct. I have mentioned many times in many of my channels before, the book The Gift of Fear, and really the absolute number one lesson is to trust yourself. Humans are the only animal where we rationalize ourselves, we talk ourselves out of our own intuition, we attempt to rationalize situations. So that's why you'll see, women will be faced with, entering an elevator with a man who gives them a creepy feeling. Any other animal, if they get a bad feeling, they run the other way. We are the only animal that talks ourselves out of our own instincts when we get a bad feeling about someone. So
Yeah.
I don't know what we are able to do for you, Jamie, in this chat, but we can validate you and validate your feelings and tell you to trust your instincts about this man and take every precaution to keep yourself safe when you are around him.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, I've seen a lot of really great comments in the chat. A lot of, a lot of women who I think have been really woken up by, our conversation. And for me, it's not a discussion for now, but I'm really excited and motivated to talk a lot more about deepfake,
Yeah.
and to talk a lot more about that kind of angle of things.
Do you want
Because
to?
this whole thing is constantly evolving, right? We could sit here for 10 hours, 12 hours, and not even scratch the surface of this, right?
Yeah, I think let's both take a stab at this question. I think you'll probably have a good answer. I have some thoughts myself. How Snowdrop One asks, how does extreme porn consumption and disembodiment link to transhumanism?
Okay, so I think that it links in so many different ways, because let's talk first of all about transgenderism, right? So one of the, as we saw before in the kind of the map of pornography, is that transgender porn is incredibly popular. We have the whole kind of genre and subgenre of, you know, hypnosissy porn and whatever. But we also, on top of that, see, I mean, for example, I use the example of facial abuse, right? Facial abuse, you're part of a particular community who is, you know, you subscribe to this website, you pay a fee, and you join in, you're participating kind of like a group scenario in this type of abuse. And, you know, if we think about something like OnlyFans, you're taking that, you know, a step further, and you're getting into a virtual type of, you know, relationship with a pornographer online. So, you know, you're having a full sexual relationship with someone without ever actually having to meet them. So the whole thing is a step, keeps continuing in steps to be further disassociated from the real world, further disassociated from ourselves and our bodies. And I even kind of question, is it even human interaction anymore if you're subscribed to somebody's OnlyFans and involved in a relationship with them? So I think that, you know, there's a lot of steps to take in order to get to, you know, total and utter disembodiment. But I don't think it really takes very long. I mean, the path looks very clear to me.
Yeah. You know, and for me, I would say that there is, if we look at it first on a values level, you know, what is porn consumption? What is transhumanism? So both of them have a value set of the commodification of bodies. Both of them have a value set of the objectification of bodies. Both have a value set of the consumerization of bodies. So bodies are, we objectify them, we thingify them, we turn them into things. We compartmentalize them, you know, boobs, genitals, arms, legs, they become a set of separate inner working parts. And then we commodify those parts. Oh, do you want to be a woman? All you have to do is buy the breast parts, buy the vagina part. Then you can purchase these parts and become the objectified thing that you are objectifying. So the value sets that they are pushing, the underlying value sets that they are pushing into the culture are the exact same value sets. So porn is really a gateway propaganda to get you into transhumanism. And look at what porn has brought us already. Look at the deep fake, as Alex, you're going to get into in a minute. Look at the porn doll. You know, the level we used to have, the porn doll used to be, you know, a friggin' blow up raft. You know, it was a
Yeah, it was
plastic
always a joke,
a
right? You know what I mean?
plastic blow
Yeah.
up toy. You know,
Mhm.
now these dolls, look, they try to make them as realistic looking and feeling as possible. So women are being thingified. You know, things like Lars and the Real Girl, these men treat these dolls as if they are women, and then thus they treat women like things, like objects. And there is an extreme fetish. I won't I won't pull it up right now, but there was a man who married a sex doll. This is a real story. This happened, I believe it was Australia. Married a sex doll, got a legal marriage to a doll, a thing, an object. And then the big story is that he left this doll for an ashtray because he has the kind of fetish that falls in love with things, and he began having a fetishized relationship with an ashtray. So this is a man who completely, literally objectifies women into just literal objects, you know. So, and this is what transhumanism is. They want us to be interchanging parts. They want us to get bionic arms and legs. They want us to download our consciousness into a machine because they have forgotten, and this is going to be anyone who hasn't read my piece in my Substack, Sex Mimics or Mimics. I have a link in the YouTube chat for that. But I talk about this, and I'm going to go into it further. My second part of this essay is coming soon. I've been exploring it, but I talk about, I think someone brought up here in this chat, Blade Runner, because the Blade Runner synths are seen as they are near human, but they are machine, they are objects. And the whole thing is, when those synths, when these skin jobs, they call them, they don't feel sensations. There's a whole iconic scene where the Daryl Hannah character, who is a synth, sticks her hand into a boiling pot of water. Now, I've mentioned that analogy a lot of times. My hand should automatically recoil from pain. So people who are not connected to their bodies, if you are not connected to your sensations, our sensations are our guidance system, our entire guidance system for our humanity, for our emotions, for our empathy. If you have no connection to physical sensations, you are a thing, because you have no integrity, you have no internal equilibrium, you have no grounding of the senses. So this is a movement, and porn adds to this movement. It's a movement to totally thingify us, to dehumanize us, from our feeling, felt, lived reality. This is, I feel such an urgency about bringing awareness to this, because this is the very depth of who we are.
Mhm.
We are not little pilots driving a bodysuit. We are sensed beings. We Sensing is the first way we come into this world. you know Kids, babies are not born abstract thinking. They're not born making abstractions about the world around them. They're born tasting, touching, feeling, crying, desiring, responding, touching. They are born sense We are born sensing beings. Our The truth of our embodiment is sensed.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and I think that kind of ties quite nicely as well into the whole kind of deep fake scandal which happened recently, which was a completely dissociated, non-human experience and scandal. In that there was a Twitch streamer who who created a deep fake pornography video of one of his colleagues and was exposed for it. Now, the girl who the deep fake was, created about, she was crying, she was bawling. Understandably, she felt like this had been like a digital rape that had happened to her. And the really kind of insane, crazy thing was that the streamer then came on and was talking. He had his wife in the background crying, saying that he was just, innocently looking at regular porn on the internet as if that's like such a normal thing, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of stumbled into creating this, digital rape fantasy about his colleague and friend. And it was obviously like a really huge scandal. But all of the questions around it were completely, ridiculous and insulting. People were raising the idea that the real girl who'd actually created the porn was not getting the credit for it. Nobody was having the real discussion here about what had actually happened. I mean, that's a completely disembodied experience, to do that. It's in many ways, it's far worse than just kind of going and hitting on your, giving unwanted sexual advances to your friend. It's actually being able to create entire scenario where you are bringing a sex act into existence that has never actually occurred. You know what I mean? It's complete dehumanization of just about everybody involved.
And they're taking us away from they're taking us away from any sense of intimacy. You mentioned earlier that the demographic of kids coming into their teens today are having less sex than ever. No, of course, adults are often fighting teenagers having sex, but it should be very disturbing to us when kids are not making attempts to have sex with each other, because one, these kids are so dissociated. They are alone, they are isolated, as you said, in their rooms with this machine, watching other people on a screen. They have lost all intimacy. And here's the thing: when you are seeing these graphic, abusive, overwhelming images, when you are as young as 8, 9, 10, 11, you are at an age where you have not held hands with a member of the opposite sex. You have not gone through puberty. You have not been able. I am so grateful that I came up before porn, because I got to explore my own body without a mental interference of some sort of graphic, violent, degrading image. These kids have not touched their own bodies in innocence before these images are being thrust upon them. It is absolutely traumatizing. It is absolutely traumatizing.
Yeah, I think that the young boys from the age of 8 who are seeing this stuff, I think that they innocently put something like sex into Google, and they're taken to pages like we were discussing at the beginning. I think it completely traumatizes them. I think it shapes them for life. And I think that this is a psyop, really. We've no clue how this is going to pan out. And the whole thing about the deep fake is that, I'd really love us to do just an entire segment really on deep fake, because it's and how it also ties into transgenderism. Because there's a whole a whole segment to be done just on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will absolutely do that, Alix. Thank you everyone who is in the chat today. Thank you everyone who participated. I want to say a special thank you to Laura and Millie for participating in my super chats. It really helps. Just so everyone knows, I pay yearly for this live stream service. So it really helps me continue this work. Anything that I make that is extra than the cost of the live stream itself goes directly into my activism. So I appreciate your support. I really do. Thank you for coming to my channel, and thank you for being such great participants in the conversation. It really helps keep it dynamic for Alix and myself when we have so many great comments and questions to interact with. So I really
chat have been amazing today. Like, really, like, you guys have really, because it's a difficult subject, man. It's dark. It's hard to talk about this kind of stuff. Like, so I really appreciate everyone in the chat supporting us and telling us that you're excited and interested to hear the content and to go out into the world and to educate about it. So now everyone who's experienced the video can now go out and have these difficult conversations on Twitter, right? Have these difficult conversations with some of the people who are promoting pornography, right? Go out, talk about this stuff. Because once you see it, you know what I mean? Like we've done today, you can't unsee it. It's
no, you
there.
cannot. You cannot. All right. Well, thank you all. Please please subscribe, please share this chat. For those of you who had to leave early, I understand. I really always encourage everyone to take care of themselves. We'll have Alix on later. Maybe Alix will join me next week, and we will get into a conversation. There's a lot more to be said and explored on this topic, and how we can all fortify and protect ourselves and keep keep ourselves resilient against this indoctrination. So thank you all. And thank you so much, Alix, for being with me today.
I just want to say to Snowdrop, yes, I would love to discuss this on any Twitter space, but not today because I've kind of lost my voice a little bit.
Yeah. a different day. And you know what? Maybe what we'll do the next time Alix is here, I do have a call-in number, so we can also take some call-ins. Yeah, so we'll take some call-ins next week when we have this conversation again. All right,
Thanks so much, everybody. See you soon. Bye-bye.